Welcome back, everyone. Next, we have Ampio Pharmaceuticals, Inc. It trades on the New York Stock Exchange American under the symbol AMPE and aims to be an innovative drug discovery and development company combining scientific, clinical, and manufacturing capabilities to develop novel therapies aimed at treating conditions for which limited treatment options exist. Please welcome its CEO and director, Michael Martino. Nice to see you, Michael.
Anna, nice to see you as well. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Hello, everyone. So before beginning, I have to tell you, of course, that my presentation contains a number of forward-looking statements, and I refer you to our SEC filings on our website for a description of the risk and uncertainties in those statements. When I was with Anna and you just about a month ago, I outlined four highlights of what I believe is the Ampio Pharma opportunity. They included the fact that we're addressing a large, growing market to treat a progressive, debilitating disease where existing treatment options are ineffective and perhaps even damaging to the knee joint. Based on preclinical data, we believe that our proposed solution, OA201, can effectively reduce pain and preserve cartilage in that disease. This is a small molecule drug. We believe there's a clear regulatory pathway. We expect pre-IND feedback from FDA imminently. The IND enabling studies are underway, and we believe there are established clinical trial precedents to guide our efforts. And then finally, from a value creation perspective, we believe if we're able to implement this plan from a current market cap that hovers around $2 million with near-term value inflection points over the next 12 to 18 months, that we are in fact poised to deliver value. So let's go into a little bit of detail on each of these points, starting with the market. About 1.5 billion patients globally report suffering from pain, and fully 50% of them report inadequate pain relief from available treatments. The chart on the left breaks down the reasons behind the pain, the reported pain. Of course, lower back pain, not surprisingly, is number one, but knee pain is number two. There are approximately 32 million osteoarthritis of the knee patients in the United States. The incidence is driven by aging, obesity, and diabetes. And again, we believe the need in this market is inadequately served by current therapies. So this chart illustrates the grading scale used to understand and diagnose osteoarthritis of the knee. The grading scale used is called the Kellgren-Lawrence scale, and essentially it focuses on diagnosing percentage of cartilage and osteophyte loss and the resulting joint space in the knee or the narrowing of that joint space. So in this chart on the far left, you see that a normal knee or KL grade 1 has minimal cartilage disruption, a normal loss of cartilage of about 10% or less. And in the dark blue box on the right, you have severe osteoarthritis of the knee or Kellgren-Lawrence grade 4. Cartilage loss is 60% or more, and there's severe joint space reduction. Ultimately, this results in the total loss of knee cartilage, resulting in what's called bone-on-bone disease. And the only known therapy for this today is a total knee replacement. So this chart illustrates the therapies that are commonly prescribed at each stage of the development of the disease. With KL1, again, with the onset being driven by age, obesity, and diabetes, the prescription usually involves some combination of exercise, physical therapy, weight loss, and behavior modification. As the disease advances to the mild stage, over-the-counter analgesics like acetaminophen, oral non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, both topical, oral and topical, are prescribed. And opioids may also be prescribed at the later stages of grade 2 But when you get into grade 3, which is considered moderate disease, this is where the real interventional treatments are prescribed, including corticosteroids, hyaluronic acid, nerve ablation, etc. We believe OA201 will be positioned to both alleviate pain and halt or reverse the progression of osteoarthritis in KL2 and KL3 patients. So this chart summarizes the current market, which is in excess of $34 billion in the US, growing at 5 to 7% a year. I think on a very increasing basis, opioids are discouraged for the treatment of OAK because of the significant risk of reduction. Nonetheless, this is about a $500 million market today, not including, of course, the major societal consequences and cost. Steroid injections have a limited duration of therapeutic benefit, and there's the potential for cartilage damage here. Essentially, what you're doing with steroids is numbing the pain, and the patient keeps using the joint as if there's no pain, resulting in further cartilage damage. Nonetheless, again, a very large market opportunity today. Hyaluronic acid is proved to be to provide an inconsistent benefit across patients, and it's not disease modifying. It doesn't address the underlying cause, which is cartilage damage. So there are a number of current therapies available today, and I've talked briefly about some of the issues with those. The good news and the bad news here is that this is a large, attractive market with a high unmet medical need. And so there are also a number of therapies in development, and they're listed on the right. We believe that the positioning of OA201 is unique, providing pain relief, cartilage protection in a safe, convenient, easy-to-use package with a very low cost of goods. We believe this package of features, advantages, and benefits will withstand the test of time as some of these future therapies are proved out and introduced to the market. So let's shift gears a little bit and elaborate on how we developed OA21. Some of you may be aware that Ampion was a drug in earlier development at Ampio. It was an ultrafiltrate of human serum albumin that resulted in a drug formulation with what were believed to be 3 active ingredients. And the drug was studied in over 1,500 patients in clinical trials. In fact, demonstrated statistical superiority in pain reduction in one trial, failed to demonstrate statistical superiority in the other trials, but demonstrated a strong statistical trend towards pain reduction. As we studied the clinical results, we believe that the issue was the inability to adjust the concentration of the active ingredients in the biologic formulation. So that led us to explore a synthetic formulation, which we called AR300, which essentially consisted of synthetic versions of the 3 active ingredients present in Ampion. That gave us the ability to dial up or down the concentration and the effect of those individual components. And in fact, over time, we studied different concentrations in 3-component drug combinations, 2-component drug combinations, and ultimately concluded that 1 component was superior for both pain and cartilage preservation, while the other 2 were either inactive or detrimental. And this work took about 12 to 18 months from January of 22. And so we've arrived at OA201, which is a novel therapeutic to treat symptomatic osteoarthritis of the knee. The active ingredient is a natural metabolite. The drug is formulated in a liquid, shelf-stable, injectable format. In vitro preclinical studies suggest the same mechanism of action that was proposed for Ampion, i.e. the single active ingredient drug downregulates inflammatory cytokines and upregulates anti-inflammatory cytokines. Now, importantly, and as never demonstrated with Ampion, multiple in vivo preclinical studies demonstrate both reduction in pain and protection or preservation of cartilage. But first, let's talk about safety, which at this point I can only describe based on our preclinical experience. Of course, the risk of the current therapies, both opioids and steroids, are pretty straightforward. With opioids, of course, the main risk is addiction. With steroids, again, what they do is effectively dull the pain in the knee, which can result in accelerated cartilage damage. Steroids are also known to increase blood sugars, which is an issue for diabetic patients. And again, diabetes is one of the drivers of osteoarthritis of the knee. And additionally, steroids are often delivered with a local anesthetic to minimize pain on injection. What we've seen with OA201 in over 300 rats studied to date is no acute or chronic reaction, even with multiple injections. The drug is formulated at a neutral pH, which should serve to minimize injection site irritation and pain. And the active ingredient here, again, is a natural metabolite. So it's been administered via IV to millions of patients for decades and other products. Now, let's shift gears and talk about safety pain reduction in preclinical studies. This graph looks at the electronic Van Fry measure of pain, again, in a preclinical rodent model. This data is from multiple studies. And importantly here, a higher number on the vertical axis equates to higher pain reduction. And what we've demonstrated repeatedly over multiple studies is that OA201 reduces pain consistently over time, significantly better than saline. Again, this is data that was never demonstrated with Ampion. So talking about cartilage degeneration, again, in a preclinical rodent model, this is the medial meniscal tear model, where on the vertical axis, a lower score reflects reduced cartilage degeneration. And what we're seeing from our preclinical studies is that OA201 reduces degeneration in the medial tibial cartilage by 30% across 3 zones measured. Now, importantly, OA201 is a new drug. It's not Ampion. We filed our original provisional application in May of 23, so that is our priority date. We filed a second provisional in August of 23, and what these cover includes composition of matter, formulation, and methods of use. We are currently investigating additional filings to support both sustained release and claims related to chondroprotection. So importantly, and a significant difference from Ampion, is that we would have patent protection to 2044, which is about 14 years post our planned approval date. So let's talk about a little bit about where we are, where we're trying to go, and what that will cost. Again, we are very encouraged, very optimistic based on the results that we've seen preclinically. Of course, we have to demonstrate that these benefits in pain reduction and cartilage protection transfer to the clinic, to patients. So in terms of our action plan, we've announced a manufacturing agreement with Ascendia. In fact, they have already manufactured the material for the GLP studies, and the initial pre-IND meeting, initial pre-IND enabling study is underway. They are currently developing the process and preparing to ramp up to manufacture GMP material to support the phase 1/2 study. We have submitted a pre-IND meeting request to FDA. We do expect to have the response to that in Q4 of this year, which would put us in a position, together with the IND enabling studies, the results of those, to file our IND in Q2 of 2024. That will enable the enrollment start of the phase 1/2 study in Q3 of next year, with 3-month efficacy results available about in the middle of 25, and the final study concluded and results in Q4 of 25. So this is a pretty accelerated schedule. I'll be prepared to give more details on the schedule and the study itself once we have FDA feedback on our proposals and know that the path is as clear as we think it is. So what will this cost? Well, if you summarize the numbers at the bottom, it will take about $10 million to get from in incremental capital to get from where we are today to the IND. It would then take another $14 to $15 million to complete the phase 1/2 study. It's important to note at this point that $6 million of that total is cash that we'd essentially have to put on deposit to satisfy the New York Stock Exchange listing requirement of minimal shareholder equity. So the actual cash burn to complete the studies and to continue to run a publicly traded company is $6 million lower than the numbers projected here. Based on my direct experience with Ampion, I believe that if the data from this phase 1/2 study are as compelling as our preclinical results, that will enable us to pursue a number of different strategic development options. So the team that is managing this effort consists, of course, of the management team and the board. I will tell you that this group comprises more than 150 years of drug development experience. I think that experience stood us very, very well in navigating what were some very difficult findings, announcements, and necessary actions once we all joined the company. We have augmented this experienced management team with a group of advisors with significant industry experience. We've engaged the Bruder Consulting and Venture Group to effectively be our preclinical, clinical, and regulatory development expertise. The 3 industry veterans represented here comprise more than 100 years of experience, and specifically or primarily in the development of drugs for the treatment of osteoarthritis. In addition, we have engaged to date a number of leading advisors. Nidhi Goel is a physician scientist with more than 20 years of industry experience. She's a board-certified rheumatologist, and her expertise is primarily from the company perspective on preclinical, clinical, and regulatory development. Ali Mobasheri is an academic scientist with more than 26 years of experience, a focus on preclinical expertise and translating that to the clinic. Allison Bendeley was the founder of Boulder Biopath and has been the primary architect and conductor of the preclinical studies that I've described to date. So we believe that the combination of the management team and board combined in a virtual model with the key advisors, our manufacturing experience, or our manufacturing relationship with Ascendia, positions us to develop OA201 in a very capital efficient and effective manner. So that concludes the slides. Again, I think the headlines are, we have a drug that we believe may alleviate both pain and slow the progression of disease in a very progressive, debilitating disease where existing treatments are ineffective. This drug consists of a natural metabolite with very compelling preclinical results. As a small molecule drug, we believe the regulatory pathway is much more straightforward than would be the case for a biologic drug. And we believe there are significant value inflection points over the next 12 to 18 months when compared to our current market cap of 2 to 3 million. So that concludes my prepared comments. Anna, I'd be happy to answer questions from the audience.
Thank you, Michael. We do have some questions for you. Let's start with a question from Rich Z. According to your recent quarter, your cash was cut in half over the previous 6 months. So do you believe, like with many other biotech companies, interest rates are the culprit to your financing? Or do you see any concern with an ability to carry the burn?
Well, a couple of comments, and I'm not sure I can comment on the market or interest rate effect on cash. Clearly, it's a challenging time for biotechs of all size to raise capital, and certainly for a micro cap like Ampio. So that remains a major priority, and also I think a major challenge over the next few months. What I can say from an operating perspective is that we've made significant progress in reducing operating expenses by reducing headcount, by eliminating the biologic manufacturing capabilities that existed to support Ampion, and in fact, eliminating the overhang of the lease on that building, and by engaging with Bruder and our consultants to implement the virtual consulting model. From an operating cash burn perspective, more than 55% of our projected burn is fully focused on the incremental external cost of developing the drug. The balance, of course, is allocated to internal expenses. And of those, a significant percentage of that right now is allocated to navigating the legal and SEC investigation matters that are carryovers from the Ampion experience. I can't say much about either the civil suits that are underway or the SEC investigation that's underway. We are focused on putting those behind the company so that we can move forward. But right now, they continue to be a drag on burn. So clearly, Anna, raising cash in the next 3 to 6 months is going to be critical to continuing to develop OA201. And I laid out what those amounts are, about $10 million incrementally needed to get to the IND, and an additional $13 to $14 million required to get to the phase 1/2 data.
Thank you for that. Tom Kramer asks, are there any partnering discussions with Big Pharma to do a development deal, or is it too premature to entertain this?
The shorter answer is it's premature. The more elaborate answer is, of course, we continue in discussions, but primarily to get input on our development programs to really understand, to clearly understand what data from the phase 1/2 study potential partners would find compelling. But preclinical partnering this based on preclinical data is premature.
Michael, we have a longtime shareholder, Carter, asking a few questions. Feel free to answer it however you want. Carter wants you to talk about the backbone of the company, including management and what's changed since its previous tenure, new management, new products, what's left and what's new.
Well, what I would say is I believe that this management team and board demonstrated both integrity and fortitude in dealing with a number of issues that we identified in joining the company. Because those issues are the subject of both civil suits that are ongoing as well as an SEC investigation, I'm simply not free to elaborate on the issues. I will say without reservation that we demonstrated integrity, fortitude, transparency, and forthrightness in identifying issues, dealing with them, and disclosing information to shareholders in a timely, complete manner. Again, this team has more than 150 years of collective experience in developing drugs. And hopefully from the approach that we have outlined, including the discovery approach, our approach to preclinical studies, our disclosures related to future plans. We've demonstrated that you can continue to count on us for that same thoroughness, integrity, and forthrightness in developing the product. Listen, this is a preclinical drug candidate. And history tells us that 9 out of 10 preclinical drug candidates aren't going to get over the finish line. Now, we happen to believe that this one is significantly de-risked because of its development history, i.e., it's one active ingredient that was identified from a prior drug with 3 active ingredients. We believe it's safe. The preclinical efficacy data we and our advisors believe is compelling. And we've outlined a plan to understand over the next 18 months or so whether that preclinical benefit will translate to the clinic. This is not an investment opportunity for individual investors looking for a home run on a single product. This is an investment opportunity for sophisticated investors that are able to diversify risk over a number of companies who believe that if and when we demonstrate that clinical benefit, that there'll be a significant value inflection over our current market cap of $2 million. And yes, we're asking you to vote on the integrity, fortitude, and experience of both the management team and board, as well as our virtual advisors to get that job done.
Maurice asks, has your team taken any drugs from start to market?
Yes, I'm not going to get into the details. Not going to get into the details in this presentation. We'd be happy to do that one-on-one. But members of the team have been involved in the development of a number of drugs, from preclinical to approval. Just quickly speaking for myself, I'd talk about the experience at AMPE Biosciences, where I became CEO of a private company. Over 3 years, essentially got a drug for the treatment of FLT3 positive AML that was stuck in a large phase 3 trial, unstuck. We took the company public. We sold the opportunity to Daiichi Sankyo. Within the past 6 months, they announced the approval of that drug for the treatment of frontline FLT3 positive acute myeloid leukemia. That's a great day for patients and physicians. And while Daiichi Sankyo carried that ball across the finish line, I think that was enabled by the good work that was done by the AMPE Biosciences team under my direction. So that's just one quick example.
2 quick questions about your OA201. Alan Buford asks, how big is the demand for it and how quickly will it be adopted once it's cleared?
So I want to be very clear that we aren't making market or sales projections at this point. Preclinical is just too early. Here's what we too early to make those projections. Here's what we believe, though. We believe when a patient with KL grade 2 or 3 goes to their physician, whether that's their family physician or an osteo specialist, that their primary need is reduction of pain. That the secondary need is understanding that that pain is being reduced in a way that is also preserving cartilage. In other words, if you're going in and just getting the neuro signals dulled so that you aren't feeling the pain, and you return to whether it's skiing or basketball or tennis or walking or playing with your grandkids, whatever the activity is, you're continuing to damage that knee. So we believe that the potential combination of benefits with OA201 is the promise of reducing acute and chronic pain, number one. Number two, doing so in a mechanism that actually preserves cartilage, delaying the progression of the disease. And number three, doing that in a format that's comes in a drug ready to use in a vial for injection into the knee in less than a 20 or 30-minute doctor's office visit. We think that combination of features, advantages, and benefits will enable significant and relatively fast uptake, depending upon the strength, of course, of the clinical data. Now, I also want to point out that what I've outlined today is a plan to get to phase 1/2 data. Very clearly, the correct assumption here is that FDA approval will require, beyond that, 2 independent phase 3 trials. And we have begun to outline what those trials would look like. We have, in fact, described what we believe those trials would be in our pre-IND submission to FDA. We simply want FDA feedback before we begin to provide any guidance on those.
And when do you expect FDA feedback?
So we expect FDA feedback on our pre-IND submission this quarter, so by the end of this calendar year.
And Kurt Bradley wants to know, what other countries are you currently performing studies in?
Well, right now our studies are preclinical studies that have been conducted 100% in U.S. labs. The initial plan is that the phase 1/2 study would be conducted in the United States. We have also reached out to regulatory authorities in Europe to understand their requirements. I would not rule out adding phase 1/2 sites in Europe. And we've also had interest from phase 1/2 sites in Australia. So that's something that would also be explored. But today, the plan that I've outlined to initiate the study by the middle of next year and to have results by Q3, Q4 25 is based 100% on enrollment in U.S. sites.
Last question for you, Michael, from Ricky. Your latest filing shows you've got about $6 million in cash. What is your current cash position?
Well, I'm going to, of course, stick with our current filing, which does about $6 million, and I'd refer you to the filing for the exact amount.
Okay, well, perfect. Thank you so much for joining us on the conference today, and we certainly look forward to having you on again in the near future, Michael.
Thank you, Anna. My pleasure. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, everyone, stay with us. We'll be right back.